It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Wednesday, Gary, how are you?
Commie, traitor to our country. Commie. Mamdani for mayor. I don't even want to talk about that at the moment. I just love saying that. I don't know why. It just is so much fun.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes back to the
It's
Seinfeld.
a good chant.
Goes back to the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. And you know, the funny thing is, well, I just briefly here, because I didn't really want to start with this, but why not blurt it out? When I saw an article saying, you know, the people aren't communists, they're just completely and totally ignorant. And I thought, well, that was Kramer in that episode. Remember, he was Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. And that was the Commie episode when Elaine was dating the communist.
Yeah.
And he wore drab clothes. She goes, and she was going around bragging, hey, I'm dating a communist. Oh, well, I guess you got that, don't you? I mean, it's like...
got that going for you.
but when he's Santa Claus and before the kid says, Commie, traitor to our country, and he's talking about, well, you don't want to get it from that store because the capitalist pigs. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
and,
right.
And what's his name? His little buddy, I can't think of his name now. Oh, I just can't think of his name. The little person.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah, Mickey, yeah.
Was like, who's a complete capitalist, is like, shut up, you got a good job. Shut up. And the kid then screams, Commie, traitor to our country. And then he's walking down the street trying to learn about communism. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that episode of Kramer is a perfect example of many of the people out there that they hear a slogan or something and they pick up on it and go, okay, that's what I'm going to believe now. Give me the slogan. Mm-hmm. So I just...
Yeah. It's, that's why we came up with the chant, because the left is good at chants.
Yes, we wanted to chant.
Commie, Mayor Mamdani, and we think it works.
And remember, I mean, that debate was going on. It was actually on social media. It was liberals that were talking about it. He's not a communist. He's a socialist. Yeah. And it was like, no, he wants government grocery stores.
Yeah.
And when you look at how people view the definition of those two words, socialism is more government control of capital, which can include, owning businesses, but communism is when not only do they control the capital, but they own all the property and they own all the businesses.
Right. Yeah.
That's
they control the full means of production.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they said that in the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
But, so he's a commie. Now, I said the other day, commie pinko, and that was actually incorrect. Mm-hmm. And I for people who don't know, who may be upset when you hear that, commie pinko, that is not a homophobic slur.
Right.
Pinko is related to the fact of communists are viewed as red. If you're a pinko, you sympathize with communists. You're not actually a communist, or you may not be a communist.
Right.
So a communist pinko is someone who sympathizes with communism, but they haven't yet been defined as a communist. So when I said he's a commie pinko, I was incorrect in that. He's a commie.
Right.
You don't need to include the pinko.
No, he's full on.
Man, this is fun. I love doing this for a living.
I don't know today that there are any pinkos left. Pinkos, give us a call, 866-90-RED-EYE.
Right, if you're a pinko. Not pink-eyed.
Yeah, pinko.
Pinko.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're
How's there not a band named Pinko? Is there? There's got to be I know there's the artist Pink. Maybe that would be the confusion. But Pinko would be a great punk band, wouldn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opening up for the Circle Jerks.
Well, I mean, you could tour.
Pinko.
You could tour with Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
You know?
could, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they wouldn't want you opening for them because, like, no. You can't be
stealing our limelight.
Yeah, you can't be
that.
Pinko. That's our narrative.
Right.
You know,
or would you be a Rage Against the Machine sympathizer? That's a Pinko.
But the beauty, as we've always said about the former band, Rage Against the Machine, is the fact that they were actually...
didn't they get back together?
Did they?
I don't know. I don't keep up with the oldies.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you really care?
No.
But
I don't write me and tell me the answer because I don't care.
But we always thought that was beautiful because they were around in the 90s, and they were really one of the first...
1990s. Yeah.
Right. They were one of the first... When you look at music as popular culture, they were one of the first to put out a label that actually is not what they are.
Right.
On the left, they're actually Rage for the Machine.
For the Machine, yes.
Because if you're a Marxist socialist, you are for a machine that is a monopoly over people.
Right. The machine.
The machine.
The.
Right. Not
Rage
a machine.
The machine.
Rage for the machine.
It would be the only machine because that's how it works in communism.
And and I'll tell you this. For all of our discussion about Rage Against the Machine and Green Day and all that, going back, 15 years, really? 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Hey. Next week, we're 20 years together.
Oh, that's right. Our 20-year anniversary coming up next week.
I just thought about it now. I went, wait, 15 to 20. Wait a minute. July 15th.
Right, yeah.
So it was 20 years ago in August that you thought that you might be working with a psychopath.
Well, it wasn't so much that. It's just that I didn't want to clean up after your head nearly exploded. It's not in my job description. And I didn't have a brain defibrillator if your head exploded.
For those of you who will criticize us and say, when did you guys come out and, you're criticizing the Republicans for their spending and everything else, when did that happen? Well,
always.
For me, it happened probably during the Bush administration, but the when I went ballistic was 20 years ago, August, and that's when, just so people know the background, that you guys, you're jumping on this belief now. No, we're not jumping on anything. It's when Tom DeLay came out, who's viewed as the ultimate conservative from Texas, remember? And said, conservatives needed to shut up. We've cut the budget as far as we can cut it.
Right.
And that was such a line of horse manure. And, we got some blowback, but you really couldn't argue with the fact that he was full of manure.
Right. Well, and I think
when he said that.
Right. And I think he would learn a lesson from the Republicans of today who clearly are hell-bent on cutting.
Nobody did. I'll give the Republicans credit. Nobody said that with the big, beautiful bill. We have cut as far as we can cut.
Yeah, at least they learned.
We can't cut any more. Now, what they
Don't go full Tom DeLay.
Now, what they did do, there's a new strategy there, though. And the new strategy is, look how much we've cut and forget about the increase in spending.
Yeah.
So it actually doesn't cut the overall budget, but people really don't care about that. So whatever, let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yes, but wow, 20 years together.
Yeah. Crazy, huh? I was thinking, by the way, speaking of Green Day, I was thinking of Green Day and Seinfeld the other day because the time of your life, the song came on in this place where I was at. I was like, wow. On Muzak, I guess.
On the 50 station.
Yeah. On the oldies.
1950s.
Yeah. Rock and Ronnie in the morning. But I always think of the final episode, which featured that song.
And wasn't that that was a perfect match?
Yeah, no, it was. I thought
it was a perfect match.
I actually stopped while I was hearing that song. I actually stopped and thought, I could hear Jerry going, "No, we hope you had the time you like. We hope you had a great time." That's That's all we wanted. We wanted you to enjoy the show. We hope you enjoyed it. That's the message.
You know, I love when they do that. It just always stuck in my mind from that last episode was when they're playing that and it shows them dancing. It looks like on City Hall where they're dancing with their hands in the air.
Yeah,
and that was when Kramer was arrested for being a mass murderer, and the police let him go because someone else was continuing the murdering. The murder was still going. It was like, no, I'm free because someone else is still committing the murders. And they went, yay! They all jumped up and down.
Yay! Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So,
wow. May of 1998, over 27 years ago, is when it went off the air, Seinfeld. That's insane.
I remember everybody being disappointed in that last episode. But it's actually, now the time has gone by, it actually is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know that there's for a show like that, I don't know, everybody would, in their own mind, has their own idea of what the perfect final episode would be, you know what I mean? They always have the Sopranos final episode is, oh my gosh, I can't believe they ended it that way. Yeah, well, I mean, what did you expect?
Or there's even for a lot of sitcoms, even for I saw it the other day. I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode of Friends.
Yeah,
I was too busy when it was on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of Friends, I mean, they're all walking out of the apartment and it's all sad.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of sitcoms, you know, when it ends, it's sad. Well, Seinfeld couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They just couldn't do that.
Yeah. When they come out and then they all, do the bow and they actually in front of the live audience and, that kind of thing. It's like, all right, it's the end. And you move on. I was reading an article about the end of, what was it called after Roseanne was fired? The Connors?
The Connors,
The Connors. And it was John Goodman, actually, that was the one that said, it's time to wrap it up. It's the main character's been dead for years. I don't think he said that part, but I think he might have been thinking. But I could see John Goodman going, yeah, but that actually came back to be true. It's time to take the final bow. Let's be done.
If you think about it, I mean, when the last episode of 2.5 Men, the same thing. There was no sadness. It was the piano.
You just end it.
The piano fell on who was supposed to be Charlie coming back and crushed him to death.
Yeah,
and then the piano fell on what's his name, Laurie. I can't think of his first name.
Yeah,
remember they were in that huge fight. Then the piano, then it backs off from the set and shows him sitting there. And he looks to the camera after Charlie gets killed and turns to the camera and says, winning, and then the piano comes and smashes him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do comedy, just have a fun moment and say goodnight, right? I mean, I think Newhart was probably the most legendary of all finishes.
I remember watching. I watched that live. I remember watching that, and it was just. I mean, they talk about the water cooler moment the next day.
Yeah,
everybody was talking about that.
Well,
the next day
they actually filmed a short scene for Breaking Bad that was not ever meant to be shown. It was an insider thing, and it was Bryan Cranston waking up in bed with his TV wife from Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh.
Going, you'll never believe this. I had this dream that I became a drug lord and the whole thing. And they actually filmed it. It exists somewhere. But he confirmed that. They only did it to just goof. And they did it and didn't ever show. It was never going to be the alternate ending to Breaking Bad. But I thought, man, you got to put that out. I'd pay to see.
Well, they had the wrap party after the Newhart, and I saw, the late Suzanne Plachette talking about it, and she said she really was sitting there alone because she really didn't fit in.
Yeah,
she wasn't a part of it. And she said, they all thought it was a great ending, but she was. It's like I'm at the wrap party. I was in the last episode.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. We got a great show. What a day! What a day it was yesterday.
Crazy,
one of
crazy
those,
day.
Every day's a crazy day.
Yeah.
Commie, traitor to our country.
Yeah.
We have a great show where we will promote capitalism, individual freedom, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence.
Keeping your shoes on at the airport.
Yes, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's right.
All coming up here on Red Eye Radio, 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. When issues with your AC system begin to occur internally, your truck will give you some warning signs. Those include a noisy compressor and a lack of water dripping from the cab drain tube while your AC is running. If you experience either of these warning signs, you should have your AC system inspected by a professional technician immediately. Listen to your truck and invest the time now to avoid spending more time in the shop later on.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, that was actually a story. It came out, 2 days ago about TSA and everybody doesn't have to take off their shoes. When I got my TSA pre-check and didn't have to take off my shoes the first time, now maybe this is an old guy narrative, but not having to take off my shoes and then I don't have, I don't have the slip-on shoes. I just, because of my tendonitis, I actually have, I know they look like they're, sneakers, but they're actually orthopedic shoes. So I have to tie them. I have to go back to the bench and then lean over and put on my shoes. And I didn't like that. And so not having to take off my shoes, but I still had to take off my belt. I got a metal buckle on my belt that I always, when I travel, and that always beeps it out. But But I also saw they're saying, well, you may not have to take out your liquids. Well, if you go through the new machines, nobody has to take out their liquids.
I haven't had to remove my liquids from my backpack in a while. I keep them in a bag and can easily.
Yeah.
But I haven't taken them out in I don't know how long. When Kristi Noem announced the no shoes thing yesterday, I thought to myself, because you go back to the shoe bomber, Richard Reed, and that's where all that began.
Yeah.
And I've said it for a while. What about the underwear bomber? We don't need that. We don't need. How far are we going to go to follow terrorists after they attempt something based on something that happened years ago?
The new machines, from what I know, can detect bombs or whatever.
Yeah.
It can going through it.
Right.
And now I don't know. I don't know. It'd be interesting. They're not going to tell you why they're allowing you to wear your shoes now.
Right.
They're not going to give you the specific reason but
you can assume it's the technology.
Well, is it the technology in the new scanners?
Could be.
Do the new scanners that now because I'm a TSA pre-check, I just we still just walk through the metal detector.
I've been sent through pre-check. I'm not pre-check. I've been sent through pre-check several times this year alone. In Atlanta, by the way, Atlanta is so busy. It really is the busiest airport I've ever been in. They say it's the busiest airport, but the very nice TSA agent, she could see I was kind of turned around, and she goes, "Here, go over here," and I walked straight up, and the line for the other one, for the regular line, was incredibly long. So she did me a huge solid on that.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. When we're just talking about the TSA and now not having to take off your shoes, and when I got TSA, pre-check, what they actually look at. I mean, what type of a background check is it that they do? Now, I've been through once when I went. Was it 3 times? 3 or 4 times? I've had to go. No, it's 4 times. I've had to go through a FBI background check and a Treasury Department check, Secret Service. 3 of them were all related to being close to a presidential candidate or covering a presidential ball during an inauguration.
Yeah.
And the other one was when I went up with the Thunderbirds. And the Thunderbirds, you had to go through both, an FBI background. They don't want you in the back seat. This is back then. I don't know what they do now, but they didn't want you in the back seat of an F-16 and in the F-16 trainer jet unless you went through an FBI background check.
Yeah.
And a Secret Service check. Hey, I know how to run this thing. Let's go strafe something.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't think they have any weapons anyway, but you could use it as a weapon. But and I thought, okay, that's probably a good idea that you do that.
Yeah, sure.
But she did mention, Kristi Noem did mention that one of the things is basically when you have the enhanced ID, that they know who you are then.
Yeah.
And and are there privacy concerns? Yeah. We'll be talking about John Brennan later on and the monitoring of government and the abuses that have happened, because of the abuses of government. But when you look at it, the machines now, I was surprised at the new machines. They can detect almost anything. The 3-dimensional, the way they look at it, and they can detect. Yeah, they can detect explosives. They can detect even what's in. They have sensors that know what's in your bottles.
Right.
Which they said there may be, because of the new machines, you may be able to carry in the future. I've seen this. They haven't done it yet, but they had the technology where it doesn't have to be, 3 ounces now? It can be more than that the machines can detect what's inside those bottles. Now, the interesting thing is where I go in, the checkpoint I go in, whenever I'm at DFW, like when I'm in Buffalo, all the machines are the new machines. So nobody has to take out, any of their liquids. Right. Everything stays in your bag. Everything. Right. And but metal, wallets, anything on your person has to be put in the bin. But in Dallas, when I go to the airport, this is DFW, not Love Field. They have one old machine and one new machine. The new machine's always broke; it's never working. So I actually have to take out. And then when I had my my TSA, because it wasn't an official TSA pre-check line, so they give you the card.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding the card, and I said, well, I need to take out my liquids, right? They go, no, you don't. You have a card. So I didn't have to take out my liquids because I had the TSA pre-check
I haven't
card.
had to take mine out in a while. It's been a while.
If you have the new machines, you don't have to.
Yeah, so it must be the gates that I'm going through, I guess, the checkpoints I'm going through. But I can't remember the last time I had to remove it.
The new machines are the oval ones. And then you have the square ones are the older machines that are more square.
Yeah.
And so they claim the technology is, I'd like to know, they're not going to tell me, but I'd like to know, okay, what is the technology that now you don't need to do that?
Yeah. Right.
But it'll make it quicker. Now, the thing is, when you fly all the time, the people that really get ticked off, really, that I see are the summer flyers. The ones that really don't fly a lot. And the ones, I saw a guy a couple of months ago, he had a 2-liter bottle of Coke in his backpack. I'm like, sir, you can't carry this. I didn't know that. We talk about...
Yeah, if you never fly, you're not paying attention.
Well, well, we talk about people being ignorant of Commie, traitor to our country, Commie, Mayor Mamdani, and there's a bunch of stories out. People aren't really communists; they're just completely and totally ignorant. Well, the same thing of people that fly. Ignorant means you have a lack of facts.
Yeah, if you never fly, then you're not going to be up to speed on it. And I mean, for me, I've streamlined it. Getting the belt and shoes in the bin. It's 2 seconds. I actually one time, where was I? Louisville, and I'm taking my shoes off. Basically kicking them off. Just with my feet, I'm stepping out of my shoes. And I've got my backpack with one hand and taking my belt off with one hand and getting it all done in almost one fell swoop. And the agent says, "You travel a lot." I said, "Well, I travel enough." Because I don't want to keep anybody else waiting. There, in the summertime, you also have a ton of families. And when you've got kids, you got car seats, you have strollers and everything else. Like the Orlando airport can be very busy in that regard, pretty much any time during warm weather, anytime after February, all the way, through December, because they do Christmas things at the Disney parks and Universal and everything else. So there's a lot of families that are traveling to destinations, and when you've got all those kids, it's a thing. And I always try and have patience. I mean, we have kids. Our kids are grown. We have grandkids. And you understand that, oh, my gosh, when you're traveling with that many people, first of all, enormously expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And then beyond that, it's, there's a lot because you got to carry on the car seat. You've got to bring with you, if you have a baby, the stroller and everything else. And so you're either limited to being in a car for days on end or foregoing the expense and the process of air travel. So
I wish I was younger, just for the reason that I don't think I'm going to make it to see the new generation of commercial airliners that's coming out. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's all one piece.
Yeah.
And they say they're going to start flying in the next 10 to 15 years. But the prototype, when you see it, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And there's no back tail. It's basically built. You can see that it's built with the same concept, for example, of a B-2 bomber.
Yeah, right.
Except it's
Right,
bigger,
yeah.
but it's wider. It's not going to be a cylinder.
Right.
Up front, it's narrow. Then it's really wide. But you probably, depending on how big they make these planes, you could have maybe 30 seats across, in the section where the wing is. And I saw the mock-up of it, and the company that's actually building it, and they said they believe 10 to 15 years they'll have the first one on the market. Or the testing will be going on. And so if it's 20, 25 years before it becomes mainstream, sorry, I'm not going to see that.
Well,
but that is really going to be interesting. Now, it's not going to fly any faster.
Right.
It's not going to it's not going to be a supersonic plane.
Right.
But they said the experience, and if you're sitting up front like window seats, because the plane is very narrow at the front, where the flight deck is, and then it branches out because it's a one-body piece plane. And so the seats, the premium seats, are going to be the ones, as again, closer to the front, but because of the angle of it, the window seat, you're not looking out to the side. You're looking more at like a 45-degree angle. You're looking at the front and the side, and they said, the view is going to be unbelievable for people, so those seats are going to be premium.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I saw, the mock-up, it shows big aisleways and all that, and I'm like, they're not going to have that. They're going to pack every seat they can into these things.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
The mock-up looked great because they showed the inside of it, and you're like, oh, my gosh, this thing looks like a beautiful lounge.
Right.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Right, yeah.
Even when you got back to coach and everything else, they have these big aisles. I'm like, they're not going to have the big aisles. They're going to fill those full of seats.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Of course.
So, but it's still the future of flying. But for me, I don't even think about it anymore. Flying, I fly so much where, And the last couple of years, I've flown so much where I just go through. There's not even a thought process to it anymore. You don't even think.
And you mentioned the supersonic. The new Concorde is expected to start flying in 2029, and I thought to myself, I don't know, where's the demand on that? Where is? I mean, first of all, look, I wouldn't want to get on a plane. My sister went to Scotland, and the flight was enormously lengthy. It was way too lengthy. Because I think to myself, all right, if we're ever going to travel in that regard, you're going to have to find some things to do. Sleep on the plane, which is very hard for me to do. But, those kind of things. So if you're cutting down a trip across the pond to a few hours, that is a big deal. But it's also a very big price. You're talking about a very, very, very big ticket. So when I say where's the demand being the high dollar amount that would, come with that, is there enough demand to keep a fleet of those, in the air?
It's the Boom Supersonics Overture is what it's called.
Right.
We'll fly at Mach 1.7, 1,050 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Transatlantic flight from New York to London, 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Will cruise at 60,000 feet.
Yeah.
It will utilize the sustainable aviation fuel and advanced composite materials, aiming to reduce emissions by 80% compared to the original Concorde. Will only carry 64 to 80 passengers.
Right. It's real streamlined when you look at it. It looks like a larger private jet.
Yeah, I guess, it does. I'm looking at a picture of it right now. I guess the question that I would have, the Concorde never made money.
That's what I mean. Where's the demand?
Right.
Where can you justify this kind of, is this for the super elite only?
Right.
Where you're going to have a fleet of them that are going to be for like a private lease kind of situation? I don't know.
Now, the engines have to be, because the Concorde was built, good God, that was in the development of it had to be in the 60s. So the jet engines today are way more efficient than before. Will that get them to the price point that they need? What is the cost going to be? Because that's the biggest concern. We have the technology to fly people, to do this, no problem at all. The point is, one of the reasons the United States never got involved in it, they couldn't figure out how to get a return on the investment.
Right. Yeah.
And
so your price point on your ticket's going to be pretty great. So, that's the question is who are you targeting with that in terms of where is the demand for something like that where you're going to have justification for building a whole, fleet of these for I don't know who.
My father got to fly in the Concorde.
Yeah.
It was a business trip, and he was going with the owner of the plant that he worked with, and he goes, and he said, "Let's take the Concorde." It's like, okay, I'm not paying for it.
All right.
And they flew over to Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be cool.
So I think they flew to France first, and then went to Germany afterwards.
Again, if you're talking about that kind of trip, and that's really what it's for. That's the real benefit, that you're not in the air for so many hours. You can cut that, way, way, way down.
Well, but if you want to get the feeling of being in space at 60,000 feet, you're a lot closer to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, 60,000 feet. My gosh.
At 1,050 miles an hour. When I flew with the Thunderbirds, they wouldn't let us break the speed of sound.
Yeah.
And he's and I went, they won't know. So we went right to the edge of it. But what he did was he flew lower, and so we're probably going close to 700 miles an hour. But we went down to where the clouds were near the ocean, so you could feel the movement.
Yeah,
it's fast going. I can't imagine going Mach 1.7.
Yeah, wow.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
Red Eye Radio, he's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Really interesting. The president said it again yesterday that, the whole thing, when it came out last week and we were on vacation, okay, the president is going to delay weapons to Ukraine, and he was criticized for that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I didn't do it.
Right.
I'm reading the Political article saying he didn't do it.
Right.
People are saying Hegseth did it. It wasn't Hegseth.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm president of the United States and that comes out, and then I've got to meet with Putin, and I didn't do it.
Right.
And it's out there. I mean, you just given Putin thinks, I see the news reports, and you're not going to send them. He doesn't have to negotiate with you in any way because, and found out it was Politico saying it was an aide in the Pentagon, Elbridge Colby, who did it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, somebody gets fired. If you make a decision like that, you get fired. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I like this story that the Washington Examiner had. Really didn't get a lot of coverage yesterday, Eric, but I thought it was fascinating. It was headlined, "The top 2024 pollsters are starting a group to challenge the bias in media polls."
They're going to be called the No Labels Pollsters of America.
Four of the nation's most accurate 2024 election pollsters have formed an independent group to produce the very best data and challenge the bias of competing surveys, many run by the media and colleges. The National Association of Independent Pollsters will start with the Big Data Poll. We'll start with Big Data Poll, Insider Advantage, the Trafalgar Group, and Rasmussen Reports, all of which were top 10 polls in 2024. Membership will be by invitation only and based on a cumulative record of published public polling with a high degree of accuracy and a low error rate, the group said. We don't need to set any standards given that anyone who is a member or future member of this organization has already established that they are among the most accurate pollsters in America. And how you figure that out is very easy. You take all the polling, you see what the result is of the election, and boom.
There you have it.
You know, that's how you get
not too hard
credibility at that point.
Right.
And then you hope that when you do polling on the issues, that your credibility on the elections is where people will take you more seriously.
Right.
You know,
right.
You and I looked at, for example, and I haven't done it probably in a couple of weeks. I just checked out the Rasmussen favorability rating for Trump, and it's 54 and 48 against. And I think he peaked, at 56 a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah,
I think it was during Iran.
Yeah.
Where after it was over, it peaked at 50s. And Rasmussen was very close in the last election. But you look at it, and when I remember they were like at 56, and you had some of the pollsters, like I think it was Quinnipiac or whatever, was like at 37% or 38%. It was like an 18-point difference. And you and I looked at it and said, someone's off.
Yeah.
Some of these polls are bogus. There's no way that in the technology that exists today in polling that there should be an 18-point difference in the job approval rating or favorability rating of a president. There just shouldn't be.
Right.
You're not doing something right. And Rasmussen started doing it and challenging. Oh, I can't think of the guy over there.
Mark Mitchell.
Mark Mitchell. In the last election started pointing out they're wrong, and they're wrong because here's how they did it.
Yeah.
Well, if you can get a number of the pollsters to sit there and say, here's where they're wrong and here's where we're right, that's what I think people want. Because the first thing is everybody agrees. We've done this long enough. If a pollster agrees with your opinion, well, then they're fantastic. If they disagree with your opinion, well, I've never been polled before.
Yeah, right.
And so if I haven't been polled before, it's got no credibility at all. But there are polls that are more accurate than others.
Mostly peaceful pollsters.
Mostly peaceful
for the pickers and choosers.
the ones that put America first.
Yeah.
But when Mitchell did that last year, I loved it. Here's where they're wrong. Now, if you can get four different pollsters or five, and people want to be a part of it because they're more accurate, because if you're in the business of selling your polls and you can become we're part of the National Association of Independent Pollsters, and in all these elections, just like any other business, we produced this product that was correct, much closer. All these other polls that are not a part of our group, they're not accurate and continue to be, well, they are less accurate than we are.
Right.
If you want to get your money's worth, you go with us.
Right.
And also that could give you business because you will have people that will get inaccurate pollsters because they wish to have the particular narrative that they wish to have. They're not trying to get to the truth.
Right.
But when you look at inside polling, when you talk about, okay, whether it's a Democratic Party or, it's like, remember the story of Hillary Clinton, that she knew 3 weeks out that the polls started crashing in 2016.
Right.
The inside polls were telling her that.
Yep.
You didn't see it in a lot of the outside polling, but the inside polling, but that gets you business there. So the more accurate, and if you're a part of a group, and we're part of this group and we're more accurate, and here it is, and you promote it every day, and then they go out and they promote it in the public every day. They go to different news media. When the news media wishes to talk to the pollsters, they go, look, we're part of this group. We were right here, and here.
Yeah.
And
you brought up an interesting point on the internals. I would love to know over the years how many pollsters worked as internal pollsters, but also worked as the media pollsters. I would love to know that, because then I would love to know the methodology between the internals and then the widely consumed media polls. So my question is, do they change their approach? I don't know that they do. I'm not accusing any pollster of doing that. We do know that the methodologies are all over the place. And you know that because, first of all, you can get into them. Which pollster was it? Oh, it was, what's her name? The Iowa pollster that ended up retiring.
Oh,
and she wouldn't do the breakdown of her numbers.
Remember that one? The poll that had I don't know, Harris winning by 100.
It was
100.
Crazy. and Mark Mitchell was the one that was saying, well, wait a minute, show us your breakdowns.
Yeah.
And she didn't do that.
Right. She wouldn't do it. We went,
right.
If you won't do that, you have a problem. Well, Trafalgar pollster Robert Cahaley, and he's been interviewed many times in the media, told the Washington Examiner that the four polling organizations have been frustrated by inaccuracy in the industry and surveys, the polling, which often hide how they are conducted. Ours is an alliance for accuracy because they're still competitors.
Yeah, and Seltzer was the pollster.
Yeah. Ours is an alliance for accuracy, he said, adding, this group is going to have all kinds of different things it may do, but it is mainly designed to celebrate groups that are accurate and put out information that is more accurate than others do. He expects the organization, formed on July 4th, to share information to quickly expand. He said 2 other independent pollsters just today asked to become members. Well, the thing is, if there's one place, because if you're selling, you're a commercial product.
Yeah.
Well, when I don't know, I think it was a Quinnipiac poll came out a couple of weeks ago, and that was one that showed, Trump had it was 38% approval, and there's Rasmussen with, 55, 56 or whatever it was at that point. And you and I said, well, one of them's wrong. Well, as we know, the college poll was viewed as one of the worst pollsters out there. But when they come out, the media publicizes them as if one poll is the gospel truth. Trump is in terrible trouble right now based on the polling that was done. Yeah, but they're one of the worst polling out there. One of the worst pollsters out there.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. If you have a group, you promote this on a consistent basis because it's like anybody. Any business that you're in, you want to promote why you're better. And so if there's one, when you think about it, that polling has gone on this long without really an emphasis on transparency for how accurate you are, except the stories that come out that very few people cover after a presidential election, which shows who was the most accurate, you would think all the time they would want to be promoting, we're the more accurate. Well, if you get a bunch of the pollsters together and they've got representatives who are out there consistently talking to the media going, they're not accurate, we are, that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want that.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
So I just thought that was a fascinating story.
Well, I like that idea. I love the approach because it seemed at times that it didn't seem. It actually was the case that Mark Mitchell was being, kind of cut out of the herd, right? And they were basically, you would hear these, rumblings of, well, they it's, they're right leaning or they're this, they're that. Well, hold on. Are they accurate? It's the only thing that matters. Are they accurate? And it seemed like Mark Mitchell, one of my concerns or one of my, observances along the way was that observations. What was that he was the only one that cared about being accurate. And I knew that wasn't the case. It's just that he was pretty loud on social media. He was putting out still is putting out plenty of YouTube videos and everything else when they do breakdowns. And if you're not looking for accuracy, then what are you looking for? Well, we all know. You're looking to skew the numbers. You're looking to sway voters. You're looking to persuade people, manipulate people. That's what you're looking to do. If you're not looking to be accurate, if you don't care about accuracy and you still want to do it, then there's only one goal that you would have. And this organization, the forming of this organization, then at least is a greater step in that direction of becoming more accurate as a group. It's not going to change a lot of them that aren't. You and I have looked at Quinnipiac's been all over the place, on a number of things. And early on in things like the Beto race when he took on Ted Cruz, and it was, I think, February of that year. And all the liberal activist media was jumping on board the Quinnipiac poll and look at this. And it's like, okay, break down the methodology, break down also the history of accuracy or inaccuracy over the years, and then apply that. But if you have a group that is setting that standard, and then you have pollsters who are jumping onto this group, that want to be members of this group, then clearly the number one goal is accuracy. You want to qualify to be a part of this group, this organization. And the only way you can do that is if you're going to have an accurate methodology. And the methodologies do change. Mark Mitchell kind of joked after the 24 election that Texas was the only thing that gave him a bit of a problem. There was one area in Texas, I forget where it was, and they were off just slightly on that. They basically would have had a near perfect score in 24 at Rasmussen reports, and he kind of joked that Texas, this one area of Texas gave him basically a little more grief because they didn't get it as accurate there. They missed a couple of things there, But the point is that when you can see it, you can also go through when you, and people don't do this. When we talk about ignorance, the average person's not going to spend time breaking down the methodology of a pollster. In fact, they're not going to get into the breakdowns on the demos. They're not going to even follow along. They're going to follow the headline. New poll says Kamala Harris is going to win by 40 points. And they read that going, oh, well, we're done.
Yeah, the Seltzer and Company was she predicted that Harris would win Iowa 47-44.
Yeah.
And it was and Trump won by 56-42, which means there was a 17-point difference.
Right.
And that's when it was like, wait a minute, you're not polling correctly. Polling should never be off by 17 points.
Right.
And as Robert Cahaley said, he goes, it's unrealistic to think that media and college polls are unbiased since our sponsors are biased and most are anti-Trump. We all know media organizations and universities have bias, but somehow never suggest that their polling does. No, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
For this new group, there's only one standard, and that's getting the results right.
Yeah. Right.
And so
accuracy.
But that's how you can sell your polling as internal polling.
Yes, right.
Because Democrats and Democrat organizations, liberal organizations, might not want accurate polling that is public, but they definitely want accurate polling
exactly
for their own polls.
They need to know the truth.
So I find that it's about time, because you need to market. I always thought it was interesting that the pollsters that were the most accurate, to me, weren't marketing enough why your product is better.
Right. I think Mark over at Rasmussen did a good job of doing that. But again, it felt like, he was just kind of spitting into the wind, at times, because it felt like nobody wanted to hear it. And for a great number of those pollsters, they don't. And they don't care about accuracy. You would think, all right, we get this one election wrong, very wrong, and we're not going to change our methodology? Well, if they don't do that and then they consistently get it wrong, what does that tell you? Well, they're not there to be accurate.
Yeah.
They're still in business. They're not changing anything. They're not looking to improve their own model in terms of the polling. The business model is all that matters, and that's the business of persuading people in election cycles.
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other picks. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And it'll be interesting to see how the other pollsters respond. To this. But I had a laugh when it was like, oh, okay, the pollsters who are supposed to be selling accuracy and transparency are now going to get together finally to sell accuracy and transparency.
Exactly. And it's the way it should be. I mean, I can only assume that the other pollsters are just going to, you just look the other way, you just ignore it and hope that nobody cares. We talked about how, we've gotten calls from people on the left back in the Obama days. No, we know he was lying. We're okay with it. So people are okay with certainly okay with pollsters lying. Nobody's screaming, on the left, you're not screaming for accuracy. Who on the left has actually gone after the pollsters in terms of accuracy, right? They only scream if a poll comes out and it favors Trump, right?
Yeah.
So they don't care.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Crowley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. So it was last week when we were on vacation, and when I saw the story that said, because it was the actual headline that I read, and I can't remember where I read it, but the headline was, Trump to delay sending weapons to Ukraine.
Yeah, right.
And I just went, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Based on the fact of what, of what he did with Iran. And we have said, he was criticized, and we have said, look, we pay attention to what Donald Trump does, not what he necessarily says every day.
Right. Yeah.
And why? Because he's built up credibility in foreign relations.
Right. Yeah.
And he built up a ton of credibility when he took out Soleimani that one time. And we said, no, he's trying to go overboard. He's trying to go overboard. And by the way, does he have any chance of winning the Nobel Peace Prize when Netanyahu is the one?
The first thing I thought when I saw that Benjamin Netanyahu nominated Donald Trump, I thought, well, given the committee, the Nobel Committee,
right.
and their tendencies, it's like, that ain't going to happen.
I was like, my gosh. Now, if the Ayatollah...
Right, exactly.
He might have
they'll give it to the Ayatollah.
That's it.
No one even needs to nominate the Ayatollah. They'll just come out. Well, we nominated the Ayatollah.
Well, because the Ayatollah didn't strike back at the United States.
Exactly.
Therefore, he should get it because he wants peace.
Right.
But when I saw that, I went, something didn't feel right about that. And it said, Trump, but I hadn't heard Trump say it. And then over the weekend where Trump said, I don't know where that came from, but I didn't do that. And then he said it again yesterday. And there were reports saying, well, Hegseth did it. Well, Trump should never, when it comes to foreign policy, he has had some great successes. I thought it was horrible. I know that.
Right.
I know that the influencers who are more conspiracy theorists were more upset when he took down that reporter for even asking about Epstein at all, because social media went nuts. The conspiracy theory supporters of Trump that are out there just went bonkers at that one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I won't say it wasn't just the conspiracy theorist people. It was the ones saying, wait a minute, we don't know what happened. But the fact is, you had Bondi, you had Kash Patel, because all of a sudden all these videos started coming out, being put out by Trump supporters, showing that before they got their positions, they were hyping the fact that something is there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think it was Andrew McCarthy that pointed out, maybe it wasn't. Somebody pointed out and said, she was Attorney General and promoting, she wasn't saying what Attorney General should say is, look, we're not going to comment on any of this stuff. We got an investigation going. When we finish the investigation, we'll tell you what we have.
Right.
Because she was giving hope. And then the whole thing, and I saw another influencer, I don't know if we played him on the air yesterday. I forgot, I can't remember his name at the moment. But he was saying, we went in there. And it was for other stuff, and all of a sudden they came in, they went, here are the binders, here are the binders.
Yeah.
Take the binders. And then they
and
the photo shoot and everything else,
right.
They were promoting it, and that came directly from Bondi. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, what the hell's going on? You're the one that's encouraging, we got something, we're going to get something, we're going to get something, we're going to get something. It's there, it's there, it's there. And then you come back out and say, no, there's nothing there.
Right.
Well, if you're dealing with, not all, but if you're dealing with a portion of those people that are conspiracy theorists, what the hell do you think's going to happen?
Right.
But I didn't think that was the worst point. And by the way, I generally like what he does when he has everybody together. I actually, in general, like when they do that.
Yeah.
Because
right. Yeah.
nobody else does it.
Right.
Nobody else does it. And it feels like, okay, he's holding court with the people that run the country. I like that imagery.
Yeah.
But I thought the worst part was when he came out again yesterday and claimed he didn't know, again, who approved it. You cannot be president of the United States.
You can't say,
situation
I don't know how that happened.
And say, I don't know how that happened. I have no idea what people beneath me are doing, because that's the message that you're sending out.
Right.
Well, Politico had it, because then Hegseth started getting the blame. Well, Hegseth's doing stuff that Trump, that Trump doesn't know about. And they have one, Pentagon policy chief's rogue decisions have irked U.S. allies and the Trump administration. Elbridge Colby spent the last several years in Washington making a name for himself as an experienced, restraint-minded foreign policy leader, eager to focus on the U.S. military away from Europe and toward Indo-Pacific. But since joining the second Trump administration as the Pentagon's top policy chief, Colby has made a series of rapid-fire moves that have blindsided parts of the White House and frustrated several of Americans' foreign allies, according to 7 people familiar with the situation. All were granted anonymity to speak freely about the Trump administration dynamics. Flanked by a team of hand-picked policy experts and staff from Capitol Hill, Colby has gotten out ahead of the administration on several foreign policy decisions. He prompted last week's decision, first reported by Politico, to halt shipments of some air defense missiles to Ukraine, which caught many Trump allies and lawmakers off guard. This week, President Donald Trump said he would reverse a decision to pause the weapons, but claimed he did not know who had approved it. He did the same thing yesterday, a couple of days later after he said it the first time.
Right.
You can't do that as president of the United States.
No.
You can't say, I don't know what's going on in my administration. By the way, this happened before I talked to Putin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you look at the timeline, you go, well, that happened before you talked to Putin. So Putin, you're like, well, Putin's not cooperating. Yeah, because he's seen the news items that you're not backing Ukraine, and that isn't what Trump wanted to do. And that's why when I saw that, I go, something's wrong here. It doesn't make, after what he did with Iran, it doesn't make sense where he would just come out and say, I'm not going to ship, these weapons. And then over the weekend come out and say, no, we're going to ship them this.
Right.
This.
Right.
Well, what's going on here? My point is, if I don't know how anybody in this situation has the authority to do it except Trump.
To make the call on Ukraine.
To make the call on weapons to Ukraine. Yeah. He's commander-in-chief.
That has to be at the top and only at the top.
Right.
I mean, there are other people involved in the process of doing it once the decision is made.
Right.
But no one else signs off on that one way or the other, not even Pete Hegseth.
But I can't imagine that Susie Wiles is happy that twice, at least publicly, he has come out and said, I don't know who, basically I don't know who that happened, but that's not what's going on. You can't say that.
Right.
Because it shows that it gives the indication that you're not in control of your own Pentagon, which we know he is based on Iran.
Right.
But it's the perception, which then if you're attempting to negotiate with Putin, well, why should I negotiate? You're making it easier for me to go into, well, I'm not making it easier for you.
Right.
I mean, he might not have said that in the negotiation, but he came out frustrated with Putin, which we said he probably would. We disagreed with the people that said that Trump is a tool of Putin and that he will be, in essence, subservient to Putin in order to win the love and affection of Putin. We never
Yeah.
bought that.
No.
We never bought that at all, ever on
Not
the show.
at all. Not at all.
But this is a case, someone should be fired over this. And if this story is correct, and it is Colby, and he made the decision, and he made that decision, and that's how it became public, I would fire him.
Yeah,
You cannot allow that to happen.
I don't know how in the world that happens. I really don't know how in the world that happens. And also, publicly, as commander-in-chief in this situation like this, you cannot say you don't know how this happened.
Yeah.
You have to know by the time you're in front of the media exactly what happened, and not that you need to share everything with the media, but somebody needs to be handed their walking papers, at least one person.
Especially since, if this is true, that there's a history of it, because they also write, Colby also surprised top officials at the State Department and National Security Council in June when he decided to review America's submarine pact with Australia and UK. This is a quote, he is pissing off just about everyone I know inside the administration, said one person familiar with the situation. They all view him as the guy who's going to make the U.S. do less in the world in general. Look, I have no problem reviewing any pact that we have, but it should not be made public without the approval of the president of the United States saying, well, no, I want you to review it, but it doesn't mean anything. And if anything happens, the questions come to me, on it. And so that it said he's basically decided he's going to be the intellectual driving force behind a kind of neo-isolationism that believes the United States should act more alone, that allies and friends are kind of encumbering, said a person familiar with the Trump administration dynamics. Colby did not respond for a request for comment. But if that's true, and I'm saying this because Politico is a liberal magazine, but what they state, we know that someone, that story came out because someone, and it wasn't Trump, and nobody else should be saying what weapons they get except Trump publicly.
Right.
You can suggest it to the president, but that's private conversations between you and the president. But in this particular situation, it should only be Trump that is saying, here's what we're going to do. And then it was like a day later, maybe it was a day and a half later, where he's like, no, we're going to give him these missiles, this, just because, we're not getting any cooperation from Putin. I'm like, well, it didn't make sense. And all of a sudden, when he said, I don't know who did it, like, you can't say that.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, is that you've got, well, first of all, you need to control your internal problem, and this is very unlike. This sounds like someone going rogue, right? And by all accounts here, again, if everything is accurate and true, from Politico.
When I read this, this quote. Here's the quote. He has basically decided he's going to be the intellectual driving force behind a kind of neo-isolationism that believes the United States should act more alone, that allies and friends are kind of encumbering. That isn't Trump's philosophy at all.
Right. Yeah.
Trump's philosophy is, we want to stay in NATO. You got to pay more of your fair share.
Yeah.
And this thing of neo-isolationism that has been pegged for Trump, that many of the same people that are really ticked off about the whole Epstein thing are also the ones that were pegging Trump as an isolationist, which we said he never is. He never was.
Yeah.
We don't know where they got that from.
Right.
Then a lot of them got ticked off with Iran, and then a lot of them just jumped aboard and said, but he solved it and it didn't end up in a war. Well, that was always his philosophy.
Right.
And so, but when I see this, I'm like, well, that doesn't even make sense. If this guy believes that, if he does, and he's making decisions and announcing decisions or leaking decisions to the press, he's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that cannot be tolerated at all, period. Zero tolerance on something like this.
Yeah, just weird.
Well, because when it started coming out, it was like, and the president saying, well, I don't know, how this happens. And before the Politico thing hit, I'm like, well, wait a minute. There was the story the other day of the AI version of Marco Rubio. Someone was making calls with Marco Rubio's AI voice, basically. It wasn't Marco Rubio, making international calls, communicating with people, which is highly dangerous. I don't know where that stands right now and if they found the person that is responsible for this, but I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, do we have a massive internal communications problem? Especially when it comes to national defense. Look, your enemy wants to get anything they can get out of people. They believe with the Marco Rubio thing, they were trying to get people's passwords and information and everything else. But you could do just about anything if you got away with it.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, Stacey Abrams speaks.
All right. Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy out there right now.
It really is.
It really just it's absolute. What a she made. Yesterday she took first place even over Jasmine Crockett.
Oh wow, that's quite the accomplishment.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Just looking here, I was just doing some reading and wasn't about to talk about this, but when I saw it, I went, this is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Electricity prices, average residential electricity prices for every state for June.
Yeah.
What a wide difference. I'm trying to find the low number here. Iowa, okay, wow. 12.43 cents per kilowatt hour. Louisiana, 11.7 cents a kilowatt hour. All right. Missouri, 11.5. Montana, 11.8. Nebraska, 10.7. Wow, 10.7. North Dakota, 10.2. Just looking here, going down through what's Texas, 15.32, which is too high, right?
Yeah.
U.S. average 16 cents, 16.26 cents per kilowatt hour is the average. So Texas still below the average.
Okay.
Ready? Now, you know where I'm going with this. Everybody knows where I'm going, right? We told you the low. Now, get ready for the high.
All right.
So remember, the average price of residential power in the United States, 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Hawaii, 42.34 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow. Wow.
California, 30.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Let me just move down here. Where's Illinois? Illinois, 15.99. New York, 24.37 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
New Hampshire, 23 cents, 23.6 cents per kilowatt hour. Rhode Island, 25. I think I said that already. Vermont, 22.29. Wow. So Alaska, 22.38. But yeah, California, 30. Oh, Connecticut, 28.16 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Commercial's different because they, as we know, commercial people can get, because they buy in bulk or whatever, it can be cheaper. But
right.
Still, it stays the same no matter what the states are that, the liberal states. Illinois would be the exception, which is below. Illinois is the only major liberal state that is below 16 cents. Maine, 26 cents. Maryland, 18. Massachusetts, 31. Michigan, 18. So yeah, just happened to see an article on it. If you want to know what the price is, here it is. Wow.
Yeah. The more you move toward more solar and wind, of course, the more expensive it gets. The more you have the mandates. And what was the prediction on the grid and the number of blackouts we would have by 2030? Recently, we talked about it the other day.
In fact, I saved the story because we only brought it up at the last portion of the show yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll just find it here. It's in I have a huge, of course, look at this. See, look at my pile of stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I went to the bottom. It's the last one.
There you go.
If I would have started
You should
at the
always
top.
start at the bottom.
Yeah, it would have taken me all day. Trump's energy department warns Americans could face 800 hours of blackouts by 2030.
Yeah.
Is that a year? Yeah, per year.
Yeah, per year. Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Wow. I had
That's
the average,
more than 2 hours a day.
Wow. The average per year for me being without, where something happens, maybe 2 to 3 hours a year. And some years there are none. I'm taking the time, but there was a transformer around the corner that kept blowing. It blew up like 3 times, 3 years in a row, like on a Saturday afternoon.
And to be clear, one that deals with electricity, not a Trans Am that turns into a Freightliner.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. All right, I'm sorry, I'm old school, because when you say transformer to me, I think of the box on the telephone pole, or I think of the big box that we used to, my dad, when we put together our 027 gauge train set, and you had the big transformer that, lowered the voltage to whatever.
Yeah,
in order to run the 3-prong track, and my brother and I were upset. We're like, but real trains don't have 3 tracks, Dad. We want the HO that only has 2 tracks.
Well, being the having one son and a couple of grandsons, if I hear transformer, I think of the main transformer, Smedley Bolivar or Optimus Prime, whatever his name was. Smedley. That wouldn't fly. It would be highly unacceptable. Think about that. That's an average of 2 hours a day.
Yeah. And when I
over 2 hours a day.
And when I say 2 to 3 hours a year, I'm including those times. It was like probably I'm going to guess 2017, 2018, 2019. I think it was 3 years in a row. And it was every Saturday night when people are maximizing the use of the power. Everybody's home.
Yeah.
Air conditioning, and the transformer about 10 blocks from me blew about 4 in the afternoon. They didn't fix it till 2 in the morning. So you're talking at that point, 10, 11 hours, 3 years in a row. And I'm looking at the 20 years that the 19 years I've been in my house, and 2 to 3 hours a year would include those 3 years when that happened. I had the power go out about 2 weeks ago. I was going to sleep, and it woke me up. Because everything, I was like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, uh-oh, everything's quiet. And then the cat's running around like a bat out of hell. It's like they know that for some reason everything goes off, and they don't hear the same frequencies of the refrigerator, the air conditioner, whatever else is running out there, and it freaks them out. And so I just it probably was in the upper 80s, so it took a while, but the power came on in about 2 hours. But it's so rare that I have, and it was something on the street over next to me. It wasn't like a wide power outage, which is one of the reasons I think now the homeowner association allows you to get a natural gas generator. Before they would not, because our houses are pretty close together. But I think they allow it now. But it's of no after. I don't want to get one now because when we had the big blowout in February of 21, the Frizola, the natural gas pressure was so low. When it gets cold where I live, that they have a truck. They have a natural gas company truck down at the corner of our subdivision, which I think is attempting to boost the pressure of gas somehow. But whenever it gets really cold, and they for some reason, but in your natural gas generator in Frizola, when we were really out, the biggest time that we were out of power, and I think I was 14 hours and 10 hours, and I think 7 hours over a 3-day period when we had that huge freeze here in Texas, and it was a statewide thing. It wasn't local. I remember going to light my fireplace. I couldn't light it. I go, what's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I've never, in all the blackouts, I've never had my natural gas go out.
Yeah. There was enough natural gas to keep the furnace going. But there wasn't enough. With the furnace going, there wasn't enough to get the fireplace.
I had my water heater, my cooktop, and my fireplace.
Yeah.
So, that's during Frizola, that's actually how we survived during those rolling blackouts.
So it's like I'm still looking at it where you've got, the big lithium-ion batteries that are coming down in price.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm still trying to decide, what do I want? Do I want a natural gas powered generator where I know the pressure's always low when you need it when it gets cold? Do I want to spend that kind of money to do that? Is it worth it? Or should I just get a big generator where I can?
Or a dual fuel. Will they allow dual fuel in your HOA?
What would be the dual fuel?
Gasoline would be the other
no.
fuel.
I'm talking about the big natural gas generators, the permanent ones.
Yeah.
I don't know of one that runs on gasoline.
Yeah. I don't know if they make any big ones that are dual fuel, but you'd have something. Because I have a dual fuel generator that would run what I need. What I'm thinking
of getting is one of the lithium-ion batteries, and then the same companies make the dual fuel smaller generators where you can recharge those.
Yeah.
And these are big enough to run your refrigerator or whatever you need to run it. But you won't run the air conditioning. But I don't care about when it went out for like 8-9 hours. I just hung out in my backyard and swam in my pool.
Yeah.
But if I had one of the big generators, I could have a fan blowing, and that takes nothing. So, and then if the battery goes down, if it's extended, I just charge it up with the small dual fuel, thing. But to get one of the big ones that run your entire house, I look at that. What do they cost? $10,000-$12,000 now?
Yeah.
Something
I don't know.
like that?
I don't know where the price point is.
Yeah.
But
But if it's just natural gas, it's like, to me, I look at it, I go, well, am I throwing my money away? So I should do some investigation and find out, if it's just why. And I live in a relatively new subdivision.
Yeah, I've never had an issue.
Why would
we've never had any disruption.
Well, you know,
outside of repair lines.
During Frizola, a lot of people had problems. The natural gas pressure was really low in many areas of the state.
Yeah, we never had that at our house.
And now every time, last year when it got cold, you go up to the beginning of my subdivision where the lighthouse is, and there are all, you know, the natural gas company is right there with a bunch of trucks doing something.
Right.
Are they keeping up the pressure? I don't know what they're doing. I should get out and ask next time. What are you guys actually doing? I may do that this year if they're out there.
Yeah.
And I haven't had that problem since, but we haven't had the Frizola kind of weather yet.
Right.
But, yeah, the Department of Energy report found that with about 104 gigawatts of energy generating capacity scheduled to be retired by 2030, power outages could see a significant rise if that capacity is not replaced in a timely manner. It is estimated the annual outage hours could rise from single digits today to over 800 hours per year.
Wow.
The agency noted that while 104 gigawatts of power generation is scheduled to be retired, it is scheduled to be replaced by 209 gigawatts of new capacity by 2030, though only 22 of that comes from firm baseload generation sources.
Right.
Which means fossil fuel.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is solar and wind that isn't dependable.
Look, you're not going to get away with an average of more than 2 hours a day blackouts. That's just not going to be tolerated. But we're not going to change anything until we get to that point.
Well, how could any state or country allow that to happen?
Right.
How could any planner
for no reason
allow that to happen? Because it's the choice that we have made.
Right.
It's not because of a lack of fuel.
Right.
800 hours a year.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the energy load in Texas means that most of that 800 hours would be June, July, August through the middle of September.
You mean when you need it? For things like survival? That's interesting.
Remember that guy who wrote he was a guy in New England. Air conditioning is a luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. In New England, it might be.
Right.
In Texas, you die.
Arizona.
You die.
Nevada.
You die.
You know, and again, it's always something that doesn't affect that.
I know.
We don't need air conditioning. Okay, we'll take yours first. Well, that's just getting irrational. You can't take mine first. It was your idea. Yeah, it honestly, again, I am convinced things won't start to roll back until we reach that point.
That's like 65 hours a month without power.
Yes. Because it's not like, well, the environmentalists would love to do. Listen, you don't need the electricity between 1 and 3 a.m. That's when we're on the air. We'll do controlled blackouts. No. It's like an excuse that a drunk person makes. Mine are controlled blackouts. No. You're not going to get away with that. But we won't turn around until that happens. Oh, where's the power? I turned the switch on. It's not there. What happened?
It was the choice. It was the people that you voted for.
Exactly.
What? I don't know.
Huh?
Should I pay attention to the Commie, Mayor Mamdani?
Look, just go to the city-owned grocery store. Get some hand warmers. Or as they call it, friction. It's a sheet that says, rub your hands together. That's what comes in the hand warmer kit.
And you stand in the line, the bread line, in order to get
that.
There'll be the bread line, the hand warmer line.
Yes, exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, the interesting thing is, I mean, you have some states, for example, there is some panic in Texas after Frizola, you know, to get backup power there, but you really don't see it at all anywhere in the United States, do you? It's not a major news item at all.
No.
Think about that we are getting rid of power that is consistent and reliable and putting in power that is not, to the point where the projection now is people could see 800 hours of blackouts by 2030. And it's a news item from Fox Business News.
Mm-hmm.
If this was the case, maybe if you look 50 years ago or 60 years ago, it would be the number one news. How insane would this be?
Oh, yeah.
And the left, because the mainstream media just ignores it completely as if, it's whatever, it's no big deal. Yet, could you imagine how they'd be screaming the victims that they are of the electric oligarchy if it actually happened, when it's who they voted for that caused it?
I'm going to have a dance syntho-pop band called the Electric Oligarchy.
You like that? I like
Yeah.
it. All right. I just
But this is the conditioning of people as you go along with the agenda. Ultimately, the left would love to nationalize energy. They talked about it openly for years. And you have to break the current system and the traditional forms of energy in those companies. You have to put them on their knees so you can take more control of that. And then you condition people to get used to blackouts. More than 2 hours a day on the average, nobody's going to get used to that.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, you think about it, because we had looked at, we're doing the story about the projection from the Trump administration because of getting rid of consistent power in states all across the country and replacing it with inconsistent forms of power, which are solar and wind, that they expect there could be 800 per hours per year. The annual outage hours, 800 hours per year. That, as you mentioned, is over 2 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it was funny because you had said, well, just turn it off between 1 and 3. No. Rolling blackouts.
Mm-hmm.
So every day it would be different.
Yeah.
You think what would the response be when that happens?
Well, are you going to do it between 8 and 5?
Well, yeah, that's when more power is used.
Uh-huh.
On a cloudy, non-windy day?
You're saying, Gary, are you trying to imply that the Democrats want to disrupt business? How dare you?
I'm not implying.
Uh-huh.
I'm stating bluntly.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But there's really no. It's like, well, whatever. It'll all work out. Things just we do live in a society where people just think that things are the way they are just because they are.
Uh-huh. No, that's how you condition people. It's just, because if you're going to do it, start your blackouts now. Don't wait till 2030. If you want to condition people, do it. Start now.
But there's,
if you think you can, by the way.
When you and I had the conversation one time about just about vehicles, about cars, and about how we both grew up. When you grew up, I mean, you did a lot of your own work on your vehicles, and good gosh, I've replaced all the brakes. I've tore down an old engine and, help put it back together again. It could replace muffler systems, replaced water pumps, fuel pumps, the points and condensers, gaskets, been all through, and done it. So I know. And my father, when I was young, I think he bought it because he thought it was the coolest thing ever and thought we would at 10 years old. And we thought it was okay, but he really put it together. Was anybody ever have, if you're around my age, which is a young 20-something, remember the visible engine, the V8 engine, and it was clear plastic, and you could see the entire thing work, and a little electric motor. Actually, I think it was what was viewed as the starter was the electric motor that ran the whole thing, and it actually was timed out. The spark plugs would light up when the piston would get to the top. It would light and knock the piston down. But it was really a cool thing. And so at a very young age, I knew exactly how an engine ran. And you and I have had those discussions where we said, how many people are driving down the road that have no idea, none, about the mechanics of how an engine works?
Yeah.
That they have no idea, none. They just know there's a motor in the car, and they have no concept of it. Or even when they fly in a plane, they have no idea how a jet engine works.
Well, it's like that YouTube video that went viral. The guy sends his wife into AutoZone to get some turning signal fluid.
No, I haven't seen that.
I think there's a version where she turns it on him. Yeah, and she turns it around, and actually the joke is on him.
But I really do believe it's sort of like in politics. I think it's across the board on so many topics, where people just think that a free society like this just happens. It just organically happens.
Yeah.
We don't need the armies. We don't need this. We don't need that, because people all live in peace and harmony. No, they don't. It's when I can still remember, and I heard it the other day again, and what a great song it is, and you and I have talked about it before. I heard, 69 was Edwin Starr, War, or was it 70? It might have been 70. And what a great song. But the lyrics are stupid. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. No, it depends what side you're on and what you're promoting. Of course, war has accomplished great things. It's done terrible things, but it's also done great things. But you can't say that.
No.
You can't say that. Why not?
You'll be kicked off X for being a warmonger. Number one.
But there's this thing that things just organically happen. People become used to them. They haven't had, most people don't serve. Most people, we haven't really been in a major war. We haven't been in the kind of depression, economic depression. So people think, I think that things just, it's the United States. Things sort of just happen. It's like when you and I, we always remember the call we got on healthcare. And it was like, well, I mean, the reason that nationalized healthcare doesn't work in these countries is they don't run it right, but we're the United States and we'll run it right.
Yeah, if we can do it right. Yeah.
As if just because the label of the country is the United States that, we're going to do it right.
Well, it's like using the word democratic socialist.
Yes. And I think
we'll do it differently.
I think the same thing with technology. You become so used to it, you don't know how any of it works, but you just go through life and you think that's the way life is. It just happens that way organically. That is, these things just that happen. The lights are on. What do you mean the lights are off? They're supposed to be on.
Right.
But you voted for people that their plan was to turn them off. No, I didn't. Yes, you did.
Yeah. No, it's a choice.
It's a choice. And
this is not because, this warning isn't coming because the grid is broken and needs repair. The warning is coming because you're not going to have enough backup for the system itself. You're not going to have the energy itself based on the regulations that are in place now.
Based on the choice of the people that you put into political office who made those choices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because there's no way, if people knew how things work, that commie, traitor to our country, commie, Mayor Mamdani would even be considered.
No.
He couldn't get 1% of the vote.
Nope.
But he does, because people live in this delusional land that it really doesn't matter who we have in political office. Things are just always going to be there because we're the United States.
And I want the guy promising me that my city-owned grocery store is always going to be there.
Right.
I mean, seriously. Think about that. That's one of the campaign promises early on.
I've got to find the article that said, yeah, Walmart probably will beat the city-owned grocery stores.
Yes. All day, every day. Hey, Mamdani, what does supply chain mean? And don't Google it.
Well, yeah, he could answer it.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the city-owned trucks pick up the vegetables from the city-owned communes.
You're giving him a lot of credibility here.
From the city-owned communes and bring them to the city-owned stores where the city-owned employees,
all organic, fair trade, locally sourced,
all making $30 an hour.
Yes, forever.
Will provide you a cheaper alternative with more choices than Walmart's.
Right. Imagine bread at 50 cents a loaf. Milk practically free. Produce so fresh because we're getting it from right here. It's locally sourced, fair trade. All organic.
But what you've just made my point.
Well, the
that's
only
a bunch
organic
of
thing about it is the manure he's trying to sell to the people of New York City.
But you made the point that I was making earlier in a totally different way, in a great way, which is you're just throwing out damn stupid slogans.
Exactly. That's all.
Nothing.
That's all. You're promising things that aren't going to happen. You're painting this delusional picture. And people are buying it. That's all you got to do.
Remember, though,
you got to convince. You just have to convince enough people.
You know, when people are shocked, as obviously the Democratic Party is, even nationwide, that Mamdani is up there, even though they support many of the things that he does, you have to remember this is the same New York City that when the polling was done, 42% of New Yorkers, and this goes back way over a decade, believed that the city should control the amount of soft drinks that they should be able to buy.
Yeah. And that by doing it, the method they were going to use to do it would be controlling the cup size.
Yes.
Remember, there was no limit on how many cups you could buy.
Right. And we sat and took the calls from New York City.
Yeah. I need somebody to help me because I can't make my choices myself.
And you're saying you
Mika
guys
said it.
You guys really didn't get calls. Yes, we did. We got.
Yeah, we did.
The one I remember the most was the guy who said, "Look, they need to control it because I can't control myself. In fact, they need to ban cigarettes because I can't stop smoking cigarettes."
Right.
Well, would you get them from the black market? Well, I do now. Well,
right.
Doesn't matter whether they ban them or not.
Right.
I mean, it was just, we were sitting there going, do people even, is there a thought process? Do you connect the dots in any way? And I think that's the most frustrating thing for me. And I'm not trying to make a comparison, but I was telling you earlier, when with my dad, there's more bad days than good. And you can see my dad's mind working. He just can't connect the dots.
Yeah.
But that's because of the cognitive problems he has, dementia, whatever. That's actually a sickness. But when you see it from people that are fully coherent and have all their cognitive abilities, and there is no type of consistency of connecting any dots to a conclusion, that's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah.
You're just like, my God, how does your brain work?
Right. Yeah.
How can you accept these things? But when people, you think about it, we're the United States of America. We've got the Bill of Rights, individualism, the autonomy of the individual, which is absolutely a cornerstone. Property rights. This country was built on the fact that you can acquire your wealth. And the whole reason you acquire wealth is whatever reason you want, but the biggest reason is, and the biggest narrative that was promoted is, once you acquire the wealth and you have property, you alone make the decision about what you wish to do in your life, and nobody else is involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as somebody else is in control of the capital or the means of production, then you're just a tool of the state.
Right.
And if you can't see that, either you're stupid or you have never been educated as to the difference between a constitutional republic, capitalistic society, and what true socialism and communism is.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't take long to understand the difference. But as you and I said, if you don't understand the three branches of government, for example,
yeah, then
if you don't even know what that is, and you don't even know why the United States exists.
Right. We have to go way back to the starting point for you.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, we have a treat for you coming up next hour.
Okay.
A mystery audio cut tweet.
Yeah.
Excuse me, not tweet. Excuse me.
Hello? What?
A mystery audio cut.
Okay.
I swear I'm not drinking.
Last few seconds was a mystery.
Yeah, I'm not drinking yet. I may start.
You want me to? Are you asking me to share? Because that's not going to happen.
Is that water or is that vodka? I can't tell.
It's none of your business is what it is.
I just want a shot or two. That's all.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. As always, all right, we're not even to Thursday yet. We're just to Wednesday and just loading up with audio cuts.
Yeah.
Want to just throw some out here?
Yeah, let's hear some.
What
do we got?
Throw some out. All right.
Let's do it.
Let's spin the wheel, and we come up with Stacey Abrams first.
Okay, fine.
And she has figured out Donald Trump's plan.
All
right.
All right.
You ready?
Okay.
Here is the governor of Georgia.
Permanent. The forever governor of Georgia.
Forever. The forever governor.
Yeah. Yeah.
She has her forever home.
That's right. Exactly.
Here she is. She's figured out what Trump is trying to do.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
That's it. Yeah. By enforcing the laws of the elected representatives of the people of the United States.
Yeah.
You said it a long time ago. One of the first things you said when I first met you and we were doing our early shows, and I believe it was you who said it first. That's how I recall it, is if the initial premise is wrong, everything else may seem right afterwards.
Yeah, but it's still wrong based on that original false premise.
And her first premise is that Trump is kidnapping people off the street.
Right.
And then she follows with everything else.
Everybody knows he's doing it in secret tunnels under Walmart. He's not doing it on the street.
Hey,
listen, if everybody else can live in the conspiracy theory thing, we can do it.
To all the Epstein conspiracy theories, bring up Jade Helm to Trump.
Yeah.
What's that, Jade Helm 15 or 16?
No, you got to worry about Jade Helm 2026. We'll start it now. Just start that one.
Was that 10 years ago? Was that Jade Helm? Was that 15?
That was 10 years ago. Jade Helm 15.
It was right about now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because we were in these studios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had just moved into the. By the way, it was 10 years ago when we moved into these studios.
Right, and we broadcast from a secret tunnel under Walmart.
Well, no, it was when we were sitting here and people were. We had our listeners at that time calling our show and telling us to stop making fun of it because it was this secret conspiracy that was going on.
Yeah,
a secret conspiracy here in Texas and other places. But the Jade Helm here was like, no, they're actually military exercises where the Chamber of Commerce in the town where the military exercises were going on, they had figured out the positive economic impact of the, quote, secret things going on in Jade Helm to take over the country. And then we all remember when we advised everybody, we said, you forgot else what's going on. There are tens of thousands of soldiers gathered in Texas near that same area. Fort Hood.
Yep.
It's like, and we had people that were furious at us for making fun of it.
Oh, yeah.
They were furious at us.
Yeah. Yep. It was. And it went on for the longest time.
I remember that was around the same time that we were making fun of the Texas secession movement. Remember that guy was always calling to, it's a serious thing. It's going to happen. We're going to secede. No, we're not.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. No. And look, we've done that a couple of times, just entertaining. Okay, here's what it would take if any state were to secede.
Exactly right. We've done that. We've gone through that for the
right
to bring some realism as to what would happen.
Right.
See, because if you were going to leave the Union, like somebody was talking about that the other day about who might secede first, and everybody keeps forgetting the most important part of if you decide to leave the Union. And what would that be? Number one,
your share of the debt.
Your share of the debt you have to take. You can't leave the Union until you take the debt.
Yep.
Your share of the debt. And then, for example, California, how much federal land is there? You've got to buy the federal land from the federal government and pay off and take your share of the debt with you.
Yep.
And we had said, remember when it was out there that California, Oregon, and Washington want to secede to Canada? Well, then you got to take your share of the debt, and if you become part of Canada, that share of the debt becomes Canada's share of the debt.
Yep.
You know, the devil is always in the details. It's the minutia.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I can hear no, they'll just write it off. Well, you don't even know what write it off means. No, but they do. That's why they just write it off.
Thank you, Kramer.
They'll just give us the national parks and the interstates and all of that.
Well, and remember, and if
in exchange for oil.
If it was if it was California, if it was California, Washington, and Oregon, they'd have to take their share of the debt, and then the conversion rate to Canada would bankrupt Canada alone.
Oh,
so that would be
man. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's insane. It really is insane, and it's the entire conversation. My gosh, surrounding any of these things. Think about how quickly they catch fire. If you think about, we talked about it during the break, the Epstein thing, or going back 10 years, the Jade Helm thing. And keep in mind, social media wasn't anywhere near what it is today. And the Epstein thing, look, I told you I read you the post on X from Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
Who wrote yesterday, Mr. President, yes, we still care about Epstein. Is there a time to not care about child sex trafficking? Read the damn room. And she's right in terms of caring about it. We should all care about it. Now the question becomes, should it be a political promise that you make? How feasible is it to deliver on such a promise? It really, you can't fully get there, because if you do it to the point of a certain conclusion, and this is our concern with Pam Bondi, this is our concern from making it a point early on. The only thing you can promise, and this isn't a real good political promise, it doesn't gain you anything at all. We're going to, you can't say anything short of, we're going to get you the complete list. Well, is there even a list? There should be great concern about this kind of behavior. But the question is, what can you promise politically? What can you actually deliver on? And if it turns around, this is the problem, too. You and I in our pre-show meeting. President Trump got a little heat yesterday, again, from people that were saying, well, we counted on you. We wanted you to do this. And he was saying nobody cares about it anymore. Well, there are people that care about it. The question is, did you overpromise and underdeliver? And was there ever a point that you were going to be able to fully deliver? Until you know that, you can't make it a promise. You don't use it at all. And that's the problem. When you make the political promise, when you say, we're going to do this, before you know if you can do that, then you've got a problem. The only thing you can promise in that, and again, it's kind of a boring political promise, is we're going to look into it. That's a yawner all day and doesn't get you much.
The problem was also you had, and it was supporters of Trump, all supporters of Trump that were playing the video of Kash Patel, of Dan Bongino, of Bondi, which was for the most part, in agreement with all of their theories of what was going on.
Yeah, right.
And so when you get in there, and then Bondi in office, the things that she said were horrible. I mean, it was horrible politically.
Right.
Again, I don't know. I don't have the evidence in front of me. None of us do.
Right.
I know a lot about it. I also know it was interesting. Did you read Andrew McCarthy's thing on it? He said, look, the problem is once Giselle went to trial, the defense lawyers learned everything and looked at everything and any other possible suspects, because one of their defenses would have been selective prosecution against her and nobody else.
Right.
So if government's hiding stuff, it's almost impossible to hide stuff once the government charges you, because then you have access to everything that they have. Even if you can't release it to the public, you can get to use it in defense of your client.
Yes.
And they go, that's the reason that when you look at it, because if I look at it, I don't know Kash Patel, I don't know Pam Bondi. I know the people. Dan used to work for our company, and his people during the day work right next door to us.
Right.
I would assume, I don't know anything about his finances, but I know the media empire that he has created. There was nothing for Bongino to take the job that he took, from what I can see, except for public service to the country.
Yep.
I don't know him. I've never met him. I know his reputation. I didn't get a chance to listen to him much as a radio talk show host. In fact, the most I've ever really seen because of the time that we're on the air. In fact, the most I've ever seen of Bongino is when he used to go on Fox and argue with, I can't think of his name, Geraldo Rivera.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those arguments?
The stuff that went viral.
Yeah, I don't even remember what they were about, but they were classic. I mean, it was great. It was great to watch it.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually see it live. I saw the videos, the videos of those, confrontations back and forth. I don't have any evidence that Dan Bongino owes loyalty to anyone except himself in the United States of America.
Yeah.
And so until you could prove it to me, I don't believe. Bongino may have jumped on some things. And again, I claim ignorance on everything that he might have said on it. I saw some things yesterday that he had said, and I went, that doesn't help you. Because when you start, if you start playing it all, in the arena of conspiracy theories, or even theories, I'll take the conspiracy out of it, just theories in general.
Right.
Because I don't want to make it sound like if you have a theory, it's necessarily debunked by saying conspiracy in it.
Right.
Your conspiracy theory might not have been debunked yet. It might be a conspiracy theory can be a question. But there are people out there that were pushing the narrative and didn't have the evidence behind it. I saw the Kash Patel thing, and I went, you don't know that. Because they were talking, it was what's his name? Oh, I can't think of it. Oh, I got mind blank here. But he was doing an interview on it yesterday where I'm like, when he said that back, I don't know, it was months ago, a year ago, I'm like, he doesn't know that. I remember thinking he doesn't know that.
Right.
And so when you say all these things, especially with the conspiracy theorists out there that exist that have supported Trump and will want to be first, they don't care about being correct. They care about being first. And if they're wrong, they just jump onto the next thing. You cannot play into that market. There's a danger in doing that to your own credibility. And if you go, I went to a thing where Dan Bongino was talking about a big fentanyl bust they had. 99% were just all fans of his blasting him for it. Said you either you said these things back then, either you were just making it up, or you're hiding it now.
Right.
And because they're not going to release anything, you're never going to stop that narrative from continuing. But I don't have any evidence that Dan Bongino isn't anything but an ultimate patriot who only wants to serve the country and, of course, his own self-interest. And I don't say that in a negative manner at all, because his self-interest isn't necessarily money by the decision that he made to go into public service instead of continuing his radio show, which brought in a ton more cash for him than, serving the public. But a self-interest can be more than just making money. It can be, I want to serve the country.
Right. Well, and that's something that, again, when we look at everything combined here. You know, the only thing I can tell you is I don't know. I can tell you what questions I have in any given scenario, in any of this. You know, when you and I started going back, my gosh, January, seriously, you think about the entire thing coming back, and early on in the entire Russian hoax thing, that entire thing, we came back from vacation that year, Christmas vacation, January of that year. That would have been January of 2017. So just asking questions. How did it get to this point? That's the only thing I can do. I can tell you something doesn't add up, but I can't tell you to a conclusion what something is.
Right.
Until I know.
And Bondi implied conclusion.
Right. Kept drawing it in that direction.
And Kash Patel was implying a conclusion.
Right. And you can't do that.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I don't know where the Epstein thing is going to go. I don't think anyone does. All I know is there was no from a group that usually supports Trump no matter what. It did not die down yesterday. It increased. And when Trump went after that reporter for asking the question, they went nuts on social media.
Yeah, they did.
Were not happy with Trump.
Right.
The response was a lot like Roseanne.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Look, everybody doesn't fit under the same category, but when we look at the Epstein thing here, you and I just having a discussion during the bottom of the hour. And the one thing is, if you look, for example, at a Kash Patel or Bondi or even Dan Bongino, these are all people that were in the private sector. And, I can't say that I've heard everything, every time they said something on the Epstein file that I heard it. But I've seen enough just in audio cuts to know that at the minimum, they were implying that something was there.
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes to the point of implying a conclusion. When Bondi then became the attorney general and was not speaking in the terms that an attorney general should speak in, which would be on any question where she said, well, I was talking about the everything that encompasses it, then you should have said that.
Yeah.
You should have said, I don't know if there's a list.
Right.
We're looking at the information that I have here. You said list. I'm looking for the information. And then other things that she also said implied that there was a lot more that they were going to get to you. And we mentioned some of the other, Lena Hobbs, who was basically saying, this is terrible. We've got all the stuff there. Well, you can't do that. She hasn't come out and said there's nothing there now, but she was an official spokesperson, in essence, at that point for Republicans and Trump that gave you the impression there's something there, there's something there. The other ones, for example, the influencers that were holding up the folders and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, there's a problem if you're in the private sector and imply to a significant portion of people, including those that believe in every conspiracy theory out there, that you're going to get down to the truth for them. And then when you do, even if there's nothing there, say it, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
You're never going to win at that particular point ever. You're just not.
Right.
And the other point is the influencers who wish not only to analyze, but be a part of the story. When you go to the White House, and I don't care what the situation is, and you hold up that binder, you became part of the story. And a lot of the influencers want to be not just analyze it, but be part of the story.
Right.
For example, you and I, our philosophy, I don't want to be part of any story anymore. I don't want to be a part. That's why I don't.
Well, I don't feel the need to be, part of the story.
Well, I say anymore because back a long time ago, I would endorse Republican candidates. I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because when I did, they would burn me on things that they would do, and then I'd get hit on it. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
I want to represent what I believe.
Yeah.
I don't want to represent what anybody else believes. I want to analyze without anything in my way. Where someone said, yeah, but you were there and you support this guy. I can tell you I voted for this guy, and I can tell you I supported this, I support this, I support this. I don't support that. I don't support that. Now, we get in our own little type of trouble, and it's not really much trouble at all, where people believe that if we support a candidate or vote for a candidate, then we have to support everything that they do, which, of course, is ridiculous.
Right.
We don't have to do that.
Right.
And you see now a lot of the people that have sort of claimed that automatic allegiance, well, when something doesn't go their way, their allegiance actually moves in a different direction, as we've seen over the past couple of days. But you and I don't have no interest in being part of the story. That's, I don't. I want my autonomy. I want people to say, I think you suck. Not that you suck because you support this person or you're part of what this person is promoting. I don't want to go to the White House.
I don't need to be embedded into the administration for it. Look, we always we joke about, and it really is tongue in cheek. If they call us for advice, here's what we would tell them.
Yes.
But I don't feel the need to interject myself into that level of look, if they called us on certain national defense items, right, and wanted our advice or political advice on, hey, what do you promote here? What do you promote there? I do actually think it would be kind of funny. Because the point is that I don't think I have anything to offer to the point that they're going to take it and run with it.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to take my advice. You and I have been, in fact, over the years asked, well, why don't you guys run? And our audience, and I do believe it's mostly tongue-in-cheek, you guys should run for office. Well, I'm unelectable because I'm not going to make you promises I can't keep. I'm not going to go overboard. Those things that, that some deem necessary to win, well, I'm just not going to do that. And I'm going to tell you fully what I believe. And that kind of blunt, straightforward, here's what I think, would probably get me off of the campaign trail pretty quickly in the primary season. It's because I'd have a lot to say about if I were going to run, I'd run as a Republican, and I'd have a lot to say in terms of the Republican Party.
Well, and for me, I have a different, sort of the same problem, but a different problem. If I was going to run for political office, I probably should start in the district that I live in and run for Congress first.
Yeah, let me know how that works.
And since I'm in Jasmine Crockett...
Tell Jasmine we said hello.
Since I'm in Jasmine Crockett's district that she took with 85% of the vote, where there wasn't even a Republican candidate, my chances are zero that I would have any chance of winning in my own district.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again...
No, by
the way, it was very refreshing that Trump won, being able to be, blunt on a number of things. But the problem is, again, like with all campaigns, if you feel the need to offer a promise, even if you don't care whether or not, especially if you don't care whether or not you can deliver on it. And I can't tell you whether he cares or not. I can't get in his brain. I believe he cares about improving the nation. I do believe that. But on a promise like the Epstein thing, I don't know why you need to make that promise. I mean, you lock on to something, I guess, in a heated moment and during a debate, during whatever it is, and then you're in, right? You can't back out, because then you've got a group of followers and supporters that are saying, hey, we expect you to follow through on that. The Epstein thing is not a small thing. That's not what I'm saying. My point is, you have to be careful what you can promising in terms of what you can deliver and what you can't.
Or, as we say, implying a conclusion.
Right. Yep.
And that maybe not being blunt in a conclusion, but implying one, and then you do have the conspiracy theorists who believe in everything that jump on it. They're extremely vocal on social media. They band together. They become a powerful force. And then, like I said, when you go in there and you say, okay, we've gone through everything, there's nothing there, that's when they'll come at you.
Yeah, right.
And again, I don't know what anybody has. And who knows? We don't know. We're on the outside looking in. We don't know. You can speculate, as you said, not even speculate. Ask questions is the way to go, and make it clear that you're asking questions.
Well, it's the only thing I know to do.
And therefore, you're not boxing yourself into a corner. Well, you guys said this, and you implied that, no, we were asking questions.
On the entire Russian hoax thing, we started asking questions early on because things didn't add up.
Yeah.
And look, there are still a million questions I have for the Epstein thing.
Well, yeah, because, and I'm glad you said that people that say, well, it's not important. I said it the other day, and somebody wrote me and said, what do you mean it's not important? I said, no. I'm saying the public isn't obsessed with, this is not going to change where the Republicans go in 2026 or 2028.
Yeah, politically, it's not a driver. But it is great that a number of people are greatly concerned about it, but it's not the political driver.
No, but the questions are a huge question. The question is, number one was, we know he was a pedophile, but were people of power in politics, irrespective of the party, part of this, and was it covered up by the government?
Right.
That is a huge, important question when it starts coming out, and you want transparency on it. And when you're promised at the minimum transparency, and it's like, sorry, it's too bad, the stuff's too bad, we can't do transparency. When you can't provide that, even if you can't deliver on an implied promise or theory,
yeah,
you're still not going to win with the conspiracy theorists.
Right.
You're not going to win.
Well,
but when you promise transparency, but say, no, the stuff's too bad to give you transparency, you're going to have even just
now you make it worse.
Regular people say,
Yeah.
but you promised us transparency,
Right.
and now you say, no, it's child pornography. We're not asking for the pictures.
Exactly.
And if there's a list out there, even if you can't do it, if people of power, visited the island, we know that Trump communicated with them. We know that Clinton, we know the list of people that, were on the flight. Why can't you make it official and say, but we have no evidence that anything happened at that particular time.
Right.
But this thing is, because it's such a huge thing of, would the government or would people in the government cover up people of power inside of a pedophile ring, a massive pedophile ring? That's an important question that people at least want some kind of transparency on, even if it doesn't fit their conclusion.
Because now you're talking about international geopolitical situation where you've got the goods on another nation or a leader, a certain person or a leader, former leader, prominent figure from another nation, or they've got the goods on an American or whatever it might be, and that changes the geopolitical spectrum. It becomes a national defense issue at that point.
Right. But, we already, for example, I was watching Piers Morgan the other day. I don't even know who the guys were they were definitely on the left saying, but Trump. Well, we know that Trump knew him way back when.
Yeah.
That hasn't damaged Trump, the fact that he knew him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
And so people will say, well, if we have the information that Trump knew him.
Well, Trump has met how many people?
Right. Well, exactly.
Of any of the people. But think about that.
That's one of the questions, because the left's screaming, but Trump. It's like, yeah, but we already know that, but there is no ties to Trump doing anything wrong or any accusation. Well, it's just he knew him back then because he knows everybody.
Right. We've been saying, and when this whole thing fell out a while back, it's a very clear point that gets down to the bottom of it. If there were anything on Trump, we would have learned that during the Biden years.
Oh, yeah.
The full stop.
Right. And then they would have burned all the other files.
Right.
There would have only been one file.
Right, exactly.
The Trump file.
We could only find one file, and it's this one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on, look how far they got with the Russian hoax. And that was a hoax.
We would have had the Epstein dossier.
Oh, it would have been everywhere. Exactly. The Washington Post would have changed their name to the Washington Daily Epstein Trump Update.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Well, our show ends in an hour, and after our show ends, it becomes our podcast. And so if you couldn't catch, all 5 hours.
How dare you, by the way.
A lot of people got to go to sleep when the show starts. A lot of people wake up to the show.
Forget sleep.
You can check it out on our Red Eye Radio app. Plus, if for some reason you can't listen to one of our great radio stations that carries us overnight, which is the preferred way to listen, we stream all 5 hours live on our Red Eye Radio app.
We do.
Yep. Coming up, we've been so busy. We said it was a busy day. FBI launches criminal investigation into John Brennan and James Comey.
Again, let's and you got to be careful because there should be an investigation here. There are way too many questions. Just be careful what you promise. Be careful. Kash Patel, Department of Justice. Be careful about what you promise.
Right. Don't promise that Comey's going to jail yet.
Right. Look, if you get something that warrants an indictment, then boom, drop it down. It will all play out as it should. If they've broken the law, you find something, you've got the evidence, then go after it. Just don't overpromise.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.